This week on Humans of EV, we're thrilled to feature Nikhil Gupta, the sales director at Delta Electronics India. From 250 plus fast charging stations to portable EV chargers, we discover how Nikhil is driving Delta's vision for a sustainable EV ecosystem.
Really understanding what customer need was not there. The focus was to close the complaint.
If you were to now set up the Indian charging ecosystem, which chargers have to be put in first? Because
If you ask me, the first priority should be the charging infrastructure for commercial segment.
so how did you enter sales and how did your journey at Delta start?
Okay, Aditya, to tell you, my career started with being into customer support. So while I was not directly into sales, but then I was representing my organization in front of the customer, and then that's where the flair for understanding the customer need and then developing some tailored solutions for them came to me, and I asked my company if I could be given a chance to get into sales, and they obliged. So that was how I entered sales, and then it kept getting in the same lines, and I honed my skills in multiple products and multiple industry types over a period of time, which includes components and then IT and telecom power supplies, and now into renewable infrastructure and renewable energy management solutions.
Okay.
Focusing majorly into B2B and at times into B2C and even channels as a segment.
So now आपके पास almost 20 plus years का experience है. So what have you learned throughout this journey, or what were the events that shaped you as a leader and as a person in doing sales? There must have been events where things went wrong and you might have learned things harder way.
Yes, you're right. So, everyone will have such events and such memories. So, as I said, I was into customer support, and then, it was a different kind of mindset and different type of KPIs which we used to have during those period. Really understanding what customer need was not there. The focus was to close the complaint. In that phase, you are not really trying to understand what his pain points are. You're only focusing on your own pain points. कि यार ये close करो, खत्म करो, बाहर आ जाओ. So that's where we were making mistakes. Like me, there were so many other colleagues also who were making mistakes in not really addressing the core issue, but to on the surface level इसको close कर दो. So which is what I understood over a period of time, that this is not helping me, and getting into the real cause, the real expectations of customers would help. So that's when I started thinking about sales, and then that's where gradually this thought started picking up in me to maintain good connect with the customers, to understand what are their expectations, to understand even the industry expectations on a broader way, not only one customer in particular or one individual in particular. So I think that's how it started, and then after that it is like a natural progression. You keep doing things as and when it comes up. And after joining Delta, of course, I got the opportunity to lead a particular business segment, not initially, but then over a period of time, of course. But even when I joined Delta, Delta was starting a new division for components. So I was probably the second employee who was hired under that division.
Okay.
So I have seen, the very basic groundwork which we did to bring that business line up, and then growing that business line, and then moving on to the next business line. So, and when we moved to second or the third business line, then I got the opportunity to lead a kind of team, to build a sales team. And that's where it all got, clubbed together, and then that's how the
But one
whole
trend
career
I was seeing
shaped.
is कि you jumped quite a few segments. आप टेलीकॉम में भी गए थे, then now you're in renewable. What is this transition like? How have things changed from industry to industry for you?
Well, I was not into telecom as an industry, but telecom as an application.
Okay.
My career throughout has been into power supplies, power conversion, to be precise. Now, these power conversion devices could be used for telecom, could be used for IT. I mean,
Okay, I get
when we
it.
are talking about small power conversion, for example, adapters, or you have desktop power supplies, or you have board mounted power supplies. So typically IT and telecom used to be the applications for those power supplies. After that, for almost 10 long years, it's been energy infrastructure. So initially it was renewable, which continues to be there, but as an additional responsibility, now I also handle EV charging for last 4-5 years.
It's impressive. And now that Delta has entered into the EV charger market, and you have what, more than 10,000 chargers on ground, how is it different to develop a charger for India and for Indians when compared to the other markets you operate in?
Well, if I talk about Delta as an organization, I don't see any difference. To give you a perspective, how we develop a charger is we have R&D setups globally. So it is not only in India, but then we have at multiple locations. In fact, we have more R&D centers than our plant across the globe.
Okay.
So Delta is one organization who believe in investment into technology or new developments, new research. And globally, about 7 to 8% of our revenue is invested back into R&D,
Okay.
which is very huge. So coming back to how we develop, let's say charger as a product. So the R&Ds across the globe, they tie up together to build a basic topology or a platform to build a charger. Right?
Okay.
Now this remains the same, and on basis of each region or country specific requirements, we can build the form factors, we can build the features, the look and feel, all those things. The core remains the same. So, I mean, for us, it is not different while we are developing a charger for US or Europe or an Indian market. The difference is in terms of the expectation or the cost competitiveness.
Makes sense.
So that is where, see, ultimately we are not able to cut corners in terms of providing a reliable or a safe product to our customers. We're not able to do that. But given all those standards, how we can be competitive in the industry is something which is a real challenge, and which is what we are working upon through our India R&D centers.
Okay. And since we have been talking about chargers, now on Indian roads there are three basic segments of EVs rolling out. That is the basic lower ones, two-wheelers and three-wheelers. There is the mid-segment four-wheelers, and then there is the heavy trucks. If you were to now set up the Indian charging ecosystem, which chargers have to be put in first? Because the resource is the same, the locations are the same. How do you define which charger goes where? Because mostly two-wheelers and three-wheelers, they don't require public charging stations as what we have noticed in the last 2 years. But still, a lot of focus is being put on public chargers for two-wheelers and three-wheelers. How do you see that?
Well, I agree with you what you're saying. See, one, there are three different segments. One is two-wheeler, three-wheeler, and then the four-wheelers, and then the commercial, the heavy vehicles like buses and trucks. If you ask me, the first priority should be the charging infrastructure for commercial segment. For two reasons. One, they cannot be charged at home. I mean, there cannot be, of course, there can be a captive charging, which is more like a public charging, but then there cannot be a home charging kind of concept for those vehicles. One. And two, if we look at our broader goal of making the green economy or the pollution free infrastructure, the commercial segment is the one which pollutes the most.
True.
So if there is a high deployment of EVs under that segment, that helps us to push and reach our goal of greener economy and pollution-free environment faster. Having said that, not that two-wheelers and three-wheelers do not need a public charging infrastructure. They also do need that. Of course, there can be charging done at home, but then still there are challenges if you look at it from the apartment point of view. Somebody living at 10th floor, it is very difficult for him to charge even his two-wheeler if there is no infrastructure available. So they will have to rely on the public charging infrastructure. Three-wheeler is mostly, unorganized segment, but then if you have to bring that segment also into the mainstream, it is required to have decent and enough charging infrastructure available for that segment as well.
I think three-wheelers charging hubs make a more sense as a operation point of view. But anyways, have you also considered the viability of large EV trucks? Because as a viability standpoint, they run on quite lower efficiency when you're comparing them to two-wheelers or four-wheelers. So do you think that trucks will go 100% EV or hybrid first?
I think I personally know many of the companies, some of them coming from the bus industry and some of them as a new startup or typically from the transportation industry who are or who have already developed e-trucks. And those operations would start, they've already started, but then they would start in a big way, I think 2025 onwards. These operations for commercial vehicles for goods transportation would start in a big way. More than hybrid, to me, EV is something
more sense
which makes more sense. See, hybrid is typically for four-wheelers, for passenger vehicles. But when it comes to goods carrier, of course, there is a big deal of charging infrastructure required, because then these vehicles run day and night on long routes. So the infrastructure requirement is, bigger and more crucial. But then I think e-trucks makes more sense to me rather than hybrid ones.
Now that we're talking about e-trucks, then they require very large chargers to charge. But is India's grid actually capable of supplying or promoting the shift that's coming? Also adding to that, how efficient are we on integrating renewable energy to India's grid as of today?
Okay, so let me put my thought process point by point. So
yes,
first thing is the capacity of chargers. You said, of course, the capacity which is required is larger as compared to what it is required for the four-wheelers and cars typically. But then that's not really a challenge, because in India itself we have technologies available wherein we can manufacture and deliver a good quality product for other segments in multi-megawatt capacities. So having a charging infrastructure or a good quality charger for trucks is not a challenge in terms of the product. When you look at it from the grid capacity point of view, again, the individual charging capacity does not make much difference, because then these chargers would be installed at many places, and then the overall load on the grid would be the summation of all these chargers, not the individual charger. So is the grid capacity enough today? Probably no. Can we do 100% electrification of vehicles with the existing grid capacity? No. There has to be capacity additions, and this is well understood and known by the government also. That's how they're also pushing all these solar, wind, renewable sources addition. And there is a big plan that how year on year this will be added up, and by 2030, by 2032, what is the target which we want to achieve in terms of scaling up our renewable energy capacities. There are, again, when you talk about renewable, there are two things. One is integrating it at the grid side, wherein the charger or any kind of load, when they draw power, they can draw it from the grid, which is integrated with renewable. Two, for the individual load side, say charging station for that matter, For the individual charging station also we can have renewable energy sources. To tell you, we anticipated this quite early, and
Okay.
then we have solutions developed how to integrate the renewable sources on an individual charging station. We have already done couple of pilot projects for that. One was done quite early in 2019, and then we have done couple of projects recently. We are going to install a similar concept of charging station in our newly launched corporate office at Bangalore.
So what percent of electricity is it drawing from the renewable source, and what percent is it from the grid?
So the power drawn from the grid is quite low, quite minimum. I would say 10 to 20%. It is only in the extreme cases. So it is not only the renewable energy like solar which is installed. So we also have installed a PCS, power conditioning system, which is a bi-directional system, which can also integrate with batteries, grid, charging infrastructure, or the load. So it is not that whenever solar is available you can charge the vehicles. You know, that power can be stored in the batteries, and whenever there is a charging requirement, these batteries through energy storage, they can charge the vehicle. So under extreme conditions, you do not have solar, you do not have
That's when it's using the
batteries dried up, then only you will need
Okay.
the-
Now that
the
you have talked
power.
about bidirectional power transfer, one very huge concept that looks very good on paper is the vehicle to grid system. Firstly, can you please explain vehicle to grid on an expansive level? And do you think that V2G can solve grid constraints in the next 5 years?
The purpose of V2G, as I look at it, is not to solve grid constraints.
Okay.
It is an added advantage for the user to plan their tariffs, and then at what time they want to draw power or at what time they want to deliver power to the grid. See, in India, in few states, we have time of the day tariffs applicable now. For example, if you draw power from 6 to 8 in the evening, this is the tariff. If you
Okay.
draw power from 8 to 10 in the evening, this is the tariff. So typically it is lower, I mean the tariff is high when the demand is high. The tariff is low when the demand is low. So V2G is a concept where you can take power from your vehicle, I mean the batteries of the vehicle, and deliver it to the grid. When you say grid, it is not that you are delivering it to a substation, but
Okay.
at least you can use that power for your own household purposes. So at a time when your tariff of power is quite high, you can draw power from your vehicle and run your household load. So you're not drawing from the grid at that particular point of time when the tariff is high. In a way, it also helps in stabilizing the grid. When the demand is high, grid is more, they need to produce more, generate more, and then they will have to have some power cuts if they are not able to really produce the kind of energy which is required at that particular time. So if there is a community who starts using their vehicle power for their own household usage,
Peak hours mein load will
the
be
load
reduced.
would reduce.
Okay.
In a way, it would help for grid stability, but that does not solve the problem. But yes,
We still need to upgrade.
it's we still need to upgrade.
True.
But it's I think still couple of years away that we are able to reach that level.
Okay, but now that India is almost 5 years into the EV revolution with full speed, we have a lot of chargers. We have a lot of older chargers also, which were installed maybe 4 years ago. So now another domain that might have opened is the servicing sector of chargers. How big of an opportunity do you see it for third-party servicing stations who are only servicing chargers? Do you think that it is a viable business? Or will the manufacturers not let this happen? Because a lot of manufacturers come with a package. You install the charger and I maintain it for the next 5-10 years or so.
So you have to look at it in a different way. See, while the OEMs would control this, and not that they do not want to let it go, but then there is no other alternative also. See, they are the owners of the technology. So any third person would not be able to service it without the help of the OEMs.
True.
If any spare part is required, it is not that a standard part which you can buy it from anywhere, which is available on Amazon. So if you have to have some spare parts which are meant for, let's say, Delta EV charger, you will have to
At the end
buy
of the
it
day,
from
come back to Delta. Mm.
So the OEM, say Delta, we will have to own this, but at the same time, we cannot have our own direct manpower who can cater to all the servicing requirement of all these chargers. So in turn, we will have to have our service partners, wherein
Okay.
we can be the technology owners, but they can be the service owners, or they are the team who's running in the field with our guidance, with our support, with our spare part availability support, but they know what to do, how to do, and
Technological know-how is there.
that's the business which makes sense for many of the service partners. In fact,
Okay.
even today we have installations across the country. We have regional service teams directly under Delta roles, but we have many of the regional service partners through whom we try and deliver the services to our customers.
Okay. Also, the Indian government has been full throttle on EVs. Like
Yeah.
FAME has come, PM E-Drive has come.
Yeah.
How has these government policies impacted Delta, and what more do you expect that needs to come, and how can the EV revolution reach rural India? Because a lot of operations for the two-wheelers, three-wheelers, for the mass happens at the rural India. How can we reach there?
See, I think all these questions are interrelated. So one is the FAME kind of schemes. Definitely, they are the key enablers for the whole of EV industry to move on. So is for Delta. They help in providing a support system to the whole EV ecosystem and encouraging the investments to come in. Now, when we say, I mean, also you talked about PM E-Drive. So yes, there is an outlay of about, if I'm not wrong, 10,900 crore rupees, and typically for two-wheeler, three-wheeler, buses and trucks. So and we have also aligned our strategies, to take care of the policies objectives. So we are also working in the those directions. And now the central policies are fine, but then if you look at the different state-related policies, they're all not in sync. I mean, they vary widely from one region
Very
to
a
other
lot, yes.
region.
In fact, pricing varies by more than 3 lakhs for cars.
That's right. So that is something, which the whole of the industry thinks that if there can be a uniform policy across the states, across the regions, this would help in wider adoption of EVs. And once EV adoption increases, obviously the charging infrastructure requirement would scale up, which would be helpful for all the businesses across the industry. Good for the OEMs, good for the service infrastructure partners, good for the charge point operators, good for the charger manufacturers, everyone. You talked about how this can be done in the rural India. See, I mean, you touched the right point. I mean, this was there in my mind that there must be some special incentives for the investments, private investments, which are done in the rural areas. If those incentives are there in place, it would encourage people to have more investments done, and then obviously that would increase the adoptability across the country. If you look at it today, I mean, it is in pockets. There are few states, few regions which are very active where the adoption rate is high. Otherwise, it is quite low. But then, if we have to achieve the goals which we have thought of, and then the adoption has to be across the country.
Okay. And how is Make in India going on? See, like, at least for batteries, Make in India is weak because we lack the resource in a way. But for the chargers, for motors, for controllers, what is the manufacturing setup like in India?
I'll answer this in two parts. One, how is it for Delta, and two, how is it for rest of the industry?
Okay.
See, Delta is Delta is one organization. If I'm right, the only organization who manufactures who designs and manufactures all of the cards or anything which gets into the EV charger, barring the standard products like MCBs, wires, etc. But then anything which is a part of the EV charger as a technology, we design everything of our own. We manufacture everything of our own and in India,
Okay.
including the charger and their subcomponents, PCBs, everything. If you look at the industry, most of the people started buying the components from somewhere with some technology know-how from a third party, typically from China, and then assembling it here. And this is how it is going for most of them even
A
today.
lot of white labeling also happening.
You're right. For the complete charger.
Yes.
But I mean, from the initial days, one step forward, people have started assembling in India, and now because of the PMP guidelines, people would be forced to make all those components also in India.
True.
Whether it is by their own technology or with the partnership from others, but then they would be forced to do that. That's on the policy part. But then, as we all know, there are many loopholes
True.
in the policy and then how people operate. So we'll have to really see how far the Make in India would be adopted, or it would still go on as a white labeling or maybe an eyewash kind of a Make in India program. But for Delta, we are committed. We even today, everything is designed and manufactured in India. And one key component, which is, let's say, the rectifier, which is designed by Delta, it's our own product, but which we are importing from our overseas factory as of now. We are in the process of localizing that as well. So very soon we will start manufacturing that also in India. So with that, I think we would be more than 90% of localized content for the EV chargers in India.
Also, if you could introduce one new EV solution tomorrow, what would it be? Like as a whole, where is the EV industry lacking that you would come in and solve? I mean, there might be 2 or 3 black holes that are sucking in all the energy.
Well, see, there are many such requirements which comes up from the industry. I mean, whether all of them are useful or not, I don't know. But then, to answer what could be one technology, see, a smart portable charger powered by renewable sources is something which personally I think would solve a lot of problem in terms of giving flexibility and accessibility of EV charging to the users, as well as to the new age CPOs who are just entering into the market. So these portable chargers would give a flexibility for them, and also adopting in the rural areas, it would be a good solution. And since if it is powered by renewable, it also serves as a source to not to stress much on the grid side also.
True. Okay, so what's next for Delta in the next 5 years? You have started making chargers, now you're making them in India. What's next? What are you bringing up next?
In terms of chargers?
In terms of Delta as a person operating in the EV industry.
Okay, so if you look at what Delta do overall in the EV space, apart from chargers, we do so many other things.
True.
There are many power electronics which goes inside the vehicle. So there are onboard chargers, there are traction controllers, DC to DC converters, which today Delta globally is, a supplier to most of the major four-wheeler OEMs. So, which is something which we are not doing currently in India. So that's one thing which we would like to bring in. We have already started the process, but then the volumes of the e4-wheelers in India at this moment is not to that scale. So we are hoping that by the time this ramps up, we also will be ready at the back end with our preparation in terms of the localized solutions for the four-wheeler OEM. So that's one area which we are working upon. If you look at it in terms of chargers, I think I spoke about the recently inaugurated global R&D center at Bangalore. So this technology center would help us to devise solutions faster and devise solutions which are catering typically to the Indian customer needs. So that's another thing in our mind. So while the platform remains the same, but then we have to provide more user-friendly products and solutions to the industry, which caters to the Indian requirements.
Okay.
So these are the two areas which we are working upon. 3, integrating with renewable and battery storage. As I mentioned, we have done a couple of pilot projects, but this is something which we would really want to scale up in a big way.
Certainly. I think thank you for answering all those questions. It was great to have you on the show.
Thank you so much.